The rain came down in sheets that September morning. Riverside Diner sat on the edge of Highway 27 like it had for 40 years. Neon sign flickering red and blue against the gray Idaho sky. The kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee, where locals gathered for gossip, where a woman could disappear into the background if she tried hard enough. Nora Callahan had been trying to disappear for 23 years. She pushed through the front door at 5:43 a.m., her uniform already pressed. Hair pulled back in a tight bun, makeup carefully applied to hide the exhaustion that lived in her bones. 52 years old, and she moved like someone 20 years older, shoulders hunched, eyes down, taking up as little space as possible. The bell above the door chimed, same sound it had made every morning for the past 12 years. Nora had counted 4,380 mornings, give or take. Morning Nora. Eddie the cook called from the kitchen window. His voice was gravel and kindness, steam rising from the griddle behind him. Morning, her voice barely carried across the empty diner. She tied her apron, started the first pot of coffee, wiped down tables that were already clean. The routine was everything. Routine meant predictability. Predictability meant safety, or at least the illusion of it. The early crowd filtered in slowly. Bill Henderson with his newspaper and black coffee, Martha Wright and her knitting needles, young Travis Beck heading to his construction job. Nora knew them all, knew their orders, knew their stories, but they didn't know hers. Nobody knew hers. She refilled cups, took orders, smiled when expected, said the right things at the right times, all the while feeling the weight of her phone in her apron pocket, heavy as a stone, waiting for it to buzz, waiting for his name to light up the screen. It always did. By 8:30, the breakfast rush had peaked and faded. Only a handful of customers remained. Nora was clearing table 6 when she felt it. That vibration against her hip. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. Her hands went cold. She glanced at the screen. 17 missed calls, all from the same number. No name attached, but she didn't need one. She knew. "Excuse me," she whispered to Martha Wright, disappeared through the swinging door to the storage room before anyone could respond. The storage room was small, cramped, shelves lined with industrial cans of tomatoes and bags of flour, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The door didn't lock, but Nora pulled it almost closed, leaving just a crack. Just enough. Her fingers shook as she returned the call. He answered on the first ring. "Where the hell have you been?" Garrett Voss's voice came through sharp, controlled, or the kind of controlled that meant danger. "I've been calling you all morning. I was working." Nora pressed herself against the cold metal shelving, trying to make herself smaller. "I can't answer the phone during my shift." "Don't give me that. You've been avoiding me." "I haven't. I swear. You've been seeing someone." His voice dropped lower, that accusation he'd made 1,000 times before. "Who is he, Nora?" "There's no one. You know there's no one. Then why won't you talk to me? Why won't you answer when I call?" Nora closed her eyes. The fluorescent light burned through her eyelids. "Because we're divorced, Garrett. We've been divorced for 2 years. You can't keep calling me like this." The silence on the other end stretched. Long enough that she thought maybe he'd hung up. Long enough that she started to hope. Then he laughed. "Divorced." The word came out like he was tasting something bitter. "You really think a piece of paper changes anything?" "You're still my wife, Nora. You'll always be my wife. Please." The word escaped before she could stop it. Weak, desperate. "Please just leave me alone. Or what? You'll call the cops." He laughed again. "Go ahead, call Boyd. See what he says." Boyd Hargrove, sheriff, Garrett's best friend since high school, the man who'd dismissed her complaints 3 times already. Insufficient evidence. Domestic disputes aren't criminal matters. Maybe you should try counseling. Nora knew better than to call Boyd. "I need you to stop." Her voice was barely above a whisper now. A prayer set into the darkness. "Mom's not doing well. The stress isn't good for her." "Ah, yes, Lillian." Garrett's tone shifted. "How is the old bat still losing her mind? Don't talk about her like that. I'll talk about her however I want. In fact, maybe I should visit her. Check in. Make sure she's being properly cared for." Terror spiked through Nora's chest. "No, Garrett, please, please don't go near her. Then we need to talk. Face to face, like adults. We have nothing to talk about. We have everything to talk about. His voice hardened. I'll be at the diner in 20 minutes. You better be ready to listen. The line went dead. Nora stood in the storage room, phone clutched in her shaking hand, heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. 20 minutes. She had 20 minutes to pull herself together, to prepare for whatever was coming next. She didn't notice the door had drifted open about 6 inches. Didn't notice the man sitting at the counter, the one with the broad shoulders and the leather vest, the one who'd been nursing the same cup of coffee for the past 45 minutes. Didn't notice how his weathered hands had tightened into fists when he heard her whisper those words. Please don't hurt my mom. Wyatt Brennan had heard every word. The storage room was silent except for Nora's ragged breathing. She pressed her forehead against the cool metal shelf, counted to 10, then 20, then gave up counting entirely. She'd been here before. This exact moment, this exact fear. How many times over 23 years? How many phone calls that started with accusations and ended with threats? How many promises that things would be different? How many apologies? That meant nothing. The divorce was supposed to change everything. 2 years of freedom, 2 years of building a new life. But Garrett never let go, never stopped calling, never stopped showing up, never stopped reminding her that she belonged to him, and she'd never found the courage to make him stop. Nora wiped her eyes, straightened her uniform, checked her reflection in the chrome shelf bracket. Pale face, red-rimmed eyes. She looked exactly like what she was, a frightened woman pretending to be fine. She pushed open the storage room door. The diner had filled up again. Late breakfast crowd, tourists passing through on their way to Yellowstone. A family with 3 kids arguing over the syrup. The normal chaos of a Tuesday morning in September. And at the counter, the man, he was hard to miss. 6'3", maybe 204 pounds. All of it muscle and ink and leather. His vest had patches. Hell's Angels. Idaho chapter, a bird of prey stitched across the back. Silver hair pulled into a ponytail. Beard gray and thick. Hands that looked like they could crush stone. He was staring at his coffee, but Nora could feel his attention, like a weight in the air. She'd seen him before, 3 times this past week. Always at the counter, always quiet, always watching. At first she'd been afraid. Another man, another threat. But he never said anything, never moved toward her, just sat, drank his coffee, left a generous tip. Now she didn't know what to think. Nora grabbed the coffee pot, started her rounds, refilling cups, taking orders. Her mind was elsewhere. On Garrett, on the clock. 18 minutes now, maybe 17. She was at table 9 when she heard the rumble. A truck pulling into the parking lot. Big, black, lifted suspension, custom rims. She knew that truck. Would recognize the sound of that engine anywhere. Her hands started shaking again. Through the window, she watched Garrett climb out. 54, but he carried himself like a man still in his prime. Ex-cop. 20 years on the force before he took early retirement. Kept himself fit. Kept his uniform pressed even though he didn't wear it anymore. Kept his badge in his wallet, just in case. He walked toward the diner with the same stride he'd used to walk into their house every night for 23 years. Confident, entitled, like he owned everything he saw. Nora set down the coffee pot. Her hands were shaking too badly to hold it. Garrett pushed through the front door. The bell chimed. Everyone looked up. Some faces registered recognition. Others went carefully neutral. In a town of 3,000 people, everyone knew everyone's business. And everyone knew Garrett Voss. His eyes found Nora immediately. There you are. His smile was cold. We need to talk. Nora glanced around. The diner had gone quiet. Eddie was watching from the kitchen window. Martha Wright had set down her knitting. Even the kids had stopped arguing. This isn't a good time. Nora kept her voice steady. I'm working. Make time. Garrett moved toward her, not fast, not threatening, just inevitable, like a storm rolling in. Please, not here. Where then? You won't answer my calls. You moved and didn't tell me where. You blocked my number. What am I supposed to do, Nora? Leave me alone. The words came out stronger than she expected. loud enough that people turned to stare. Garrett's expression darkened. His hand reached for her arm. That's when the man at the counter stood up. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Just rose to his full height, turned to face Garrett, and everything about his posture said one thing. No. Garrett stopped, hand frozen in mid-reach. His eyes narrowed as he took in the leather vest, the patches, the ink crawling up muscled forearms. You got something to say, Garrett's cop voice, the one he'd used on suspects. The man at the counter still didn't speak, just looked at Garrett with eyes that had seen violence, had been violence, had made peace with it. Garrett's jaw tightened. He looked at Nora, back at the man, around at the watching faces. This isn't over, he said to Nora. We're going to talk, soon. Then he turned and walked out. The bell chimed as the door swung shut. His truck roared to life. Gravel sprayed as he peeled out of the parking lot. The diner stayed quiet for exactly 5 seconds. Then the noise rushed back in. Conversations resumed. Forks clinked against plates. The family's youngest child started crying. Nora stood frozen, staring at the door, her whole body trembling. You okay, hon? Martha Wright's voice, gentle, concerned. Nora nodded, couldn't speak, couldn't move. The man at the counter sat back down, picked up his coffee like nothing had happened. But Nora noticed his hands, still clenched, still ready. She made it through the rest of her shift on autopilot, took orders, delivered food, smiled when required, all the while feeling Garrett's absence like a held breath. He was gone, but not gone. Never really gone. At 2:15, she clocked out, changed out of her uniform in the tiny bathroom, pulled on jeans and a sweater, grabbed her purse. The rain had stopped. Afternoon sun breaking through clouds, steam rising from the wet pavement. Nora's car was parked around back. A 12-year-old Honda with 200,000 miles and a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. She dug for her keys. Let me drive you home. She spun around. The man from the counter stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, non-threatening. But the ink on his forearms told stories. The scars on his knuckles spoke of violence. No, thank you. Nora's voice came out steadier than she felt. I'm fine, you're not fine. He said it matter of fact. No judgment, just truth. You don't know me, I know enough. He took one step closer, stopped when she tensed. I heard you, in the storage room. I heard what you said. Nora's face flushed. You were listening, door was open. Sound carries. He met her eyes, direct, honest. You asked him not to hurt your mom. The words hung between them. I'm Wyatt, he said. Wyatt Brennan. People call me Stone. Nora, she didn't offer her last name. I know, he said. Nora Callahan. You've worked here 12 years. You take care of your mother. She's got Alzheimer's. You've got a daughter named Ivy, but she doesn't talk to you anymore. Nora took a step back. How do you, small town? People talk, he shrugged. And I've been asking questions. Because I've been watching you for a week. Watching you jump every time your phone buzzes. Watching you check the parking lot every 15 minutes. Watching you live like you're waiting for something bad to happen. Nora's throat tightened. That's none of your business. Maybe not. Wyatt's expression didn't change. But I'm making it my business. I don't need your help. Everyone needs help sometimes. Not from a stranger. Then let me introduce myself properly. Wyatt pulled out his wallet, showed her his driver's license. Wyatt Joseph Brennan, born 1966, retired from the Angels 5 years ago. Live about 10 miles outside town. No criminal record, no warrants. Just a man who doesn't like seeing women get hurt. Nora stared at the license, at his face in the photo, younger but the same hard eyes. Why? She asked again. Why do you care? Because 20 years ago my daughter was married to a man like that. Wyatt's voice went quiet. And I didn't do enough. Didn't see it. Didn't believe it. Didn't act fast enough. His daughter. Past tense. She's gone now, he said. Been gone 15 years. And I swore I'd never stand by again. Never pretend not to see. Never ignore a woman who's scared. The parking lot was quiet except for the drip of rainwater from the diner's gutters. I'm sorry, Nora said. About your daughter. Me too. Wyatt put his wallet away. Let me drive you home. Make sure you get there safe. He'll see you. He'll see your motorcycle. He'll think, Let him think. Wyatt's voice hardened. Let him see me. Let him know you're not alone anymore. Nora wanted to say no, wanted to handle this herself, like she'd been handling it for 23 years. But she was so tired, so worn down, and the idea of someone standing between her and Garrett, even for just one drive home. Okay, she whispered. Wyatt's motorcycle was parked at the edge of the lot, a Harley, chrome and black leather, well maintained. He handed her a helmet, ever ridden before numb. Hold on to my waist, don't fight the turns, trust me. She climbed on behind him. The seat was higher than she expected. She wrapped her arms around his midsection, felt the solid muscle under leather. The scars and stories written in ink. The engine roared to life, deep and powerful. They pulled out onto Highway 27, headed west toward the mountains, the afternoon sun warm on Nora's back, wind pulling at her hair. For 3 miles she let herself pretend she was someone else, someone without history, someone without fear, someone who could ride a motorcycle with a man she barely knew and not think about consequences. Then they turned onto Maple Street and reality came crashing back. Lillian Callahan lived in a small white house at the end of a dead-end road. 1 story, 2 bedrooms, flower boxes that Nora tried to keep watered, a porch with a swing that nobody used anymore. Wyatt pulled into the driveway, killed the engine. Thank you. Nora climbed off, handed back the helmet. I appreciate the ride. I'll wait. Make sure you get inside safe. You don't have to. I know, he said, but I will. Nora walked to the front door, unlocked it, stepped inside. Mom, she called out, I'm home. Silence. The house smelled like lavender and old coffee. Nora moved through the living room, past the photos on the wall. Lillian as a young bride, Nora as a baby, Ivy's school pictures, a family that used to exist. Mom. She found Lillian in the kitchen, standing at the sink, staring out the window at nothing, still in her nightgown even though it was past 2 in the afternoon. Hi, Mom. Nora touched her shoulder gently. Did you have lunch? Lillian turned, looked at Nora with empty eyes. Who are you? The words cut, every single time. I'm Nora, your daughter. Lillian frowned. I don't have a daughter. Yes, you do. Mom, it's me. Nora, no. Lillian's voice rose. No, I want my daughter. Where's my daughter? I'm right here. Nora took her mother's hands. I'm right here. But Lillian had already drifted away, back to whatever place the disease took her, back to memories that didn't include Nora anymore. Nora guided her mother to the living room, settled her in the recliner, turned on the television, found the channel that played old game shows. Lillian liked those, or used to. She made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, put her head in her hands. This was her life, work, home, care for a mother who didn't know her, sleep, repeat, and somewhere in the cracks between routine Garrett, always Garrett, calling, threatening, reminding her she could never really be free. A knock at the door made her jump. Wyatt stood on the porch, helmet in hand. Everything okay? Nora nodded, wiped her eyes. Fine. Everything's fine. You are crying. I'm not. She looked down, realized her cheeks were wet. Can I come in? Wyatt asked. Just for a minute. She should say no, should send him away, should keep her problems private like she'd been doing for 23 years. Instead, she opened the door wider. Wyatt stepped inside, took in the living room, the photos, Lillian in her recliner, oblivious to his presence. That's your mom, Lillian, Nora said. She has good days and bad days. Today's a bad day. Wyatt moved closer to the recliner, knelt down so he was eye-level with Lillian, spoke in a voice so gentle it surprised Nora. Hello, ma'am. I'm Wyatt. I'm a friend of your daughter's. Lillian looked at him, blinked. My daughter, Nora. Wyatt gestured. She's right there. Lillian turned, looked at Nora. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Love. Then it was gone. I'm tired, Lillian said. I want to sleep. Wyatt stood, stepped back. Nora helped her mother to the bedroom, tucked her in, kissed her forehead, closed the door. When she returned to the living room, Wyatt was standing by the window, looking out at the street. He's out there, Wyatt said. Black truck, 2 houses down. Nora's blood went cold. She moved to the window, peered through the curtains. Garrett's truck sat parked under a maple tree, close enough to watch, far enough to claim he wasn't. How long has he been doing this? Wyatt asked. Months. Nora's voice shook. Since the divorce, he just sits there, watching, sometimes all night. You call the police? She laughed. Bitter. The sheriff is his best friend. They went to high school together, played football together. They're like brothers. Wyatt was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll stay, he said. What? Tonight? I'll stay. Make sure he doesn't come any closer. You can, I can. And I will. Wyatt met her eyes. You asked him not to hurt your mom. I heard you. That whisper, that prayer, well, someone's listening now. Someone's here. And he's not getting near either of you. Nora wanted to protest, wanted to say she could handle this, wanted to be strong and independent and capable. But she was so tired. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Wyatt pulled out his phone. Made a call. Yeah, it's me. Need you to bring my truck. Corner of Maple and 3rd. He paused. Yeah, tonight. Thanks, brother. He hung up, looked at Nora. My friend Wade is bringing my truck. I'll park outside. Keep watch. If Garrett moves, I'll make sure he doesn't get to your door. What if he calls the police? Let him. Wyatt's smile was cold. I'm not breaking any laws, just sitting in my truck, on a public street, same as him. The irony wasn't lost on Nora. 30 minutes later, another motorcycle pulled up. A man older than Wyatt climbed off. Gray beard down to his chest, more ink, more leather. He and Wyatt spoke briefly. Then the man handed over truck keys and rode off on Wyatt's motorcycle. Wyatt's truck was a Ford, 20 years old, well-maintained. He parked it directly in front of Nora's house, between her and Garrett. Nora watched from the window. Garrett's truck didn't move, but she could imagine his face. The anger, the calculation, the realization that things had changed. That night, Nora made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, simple, comfort food. She brought a bowl out to Wyatt. You don't have to eat it, she said. You're doing me a favor. The least I can do is feed you. He took the bowl. Their fingers brushed. She pulled back quickly. Thank you, he said. She went back inside, fed her mother, though Lillian only ate a few bites before pushing the bowl away. Put her to bed again, sat in the living room with the lights off. Through the window, she could see Wyatt's silhouette in the truck. Solid, unmoving, a guardian. And further down the street, Garrett's truck. Still watching, still waiting. Nora pulled a blanket around her shoulders. Let herself imagine for just a moment what it might feel like to be safe. To not jump at every phone call. To not check the locks 3 times before bed. To sleep through the night without nightmares. It had been so long she couldn't quite remember. Her phone buzzed, a text message. Unknown number, but she knew. Tell your boyfriend to leave, or I'll make him. Nora's hands shook as she typed back, please just go away. Leave us alone. The response came immediately. Never. She set the phone down, walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, tried to breathe. Another text. You're making this worse for yourself. Then another. For your mother too. And another. Remember what happened last time you tried to leave me. Nora closed her eyes. She remembered. The bruises, the broken ribs, the hospital, the doctor who'd looked at her with pity and asked if she wanted to report it. The shame when she said no. She remembered all of it. Her phone rang. Garrett. She didn't answer. It rang again, and again, and again. Finally, she turned it off, set it face down on the counter, pressed her palms against the cool granite, counted her breaths. A knock at the door. Soft. Careful. Wyatt stood on the porch. His face was hard. He's been calling you. It wasn't a question. Nora nodded. Give me your phone. What? No, Nora. Wyatt's voice was gentle but firm. Give me your phone. She handed it over, watched as he turned it back on, waited for it to load. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from Garrett. Wyatt read through them. His jaw tightened with each one. Then he opened the camera, took screenshots of everything, sent them to his own phone, handed hers back. Evidence, he said, for later. Later, when you're ready to fight back. When you're ready to make this stop, you'll need proof. Nora wanted to laugh. To tell him there was no fighting back. That she'd tried, that the system didn't work for women like her. that men like Garrett always won, but something in Wyatt's eyes stopped her. He believed she could fight back, believed she could win. It had been so long since anyone believed in her. "Get some sleep," Wyatt said. "I'll be right outside all night. He won't get near you." Nora watched him walk back to his truck, watched him settle in, watched the lights go off. She closed the door, locked it, checked the windows. A routine she'd perfected over years. Then she went to bed, lay in the darkness, listened to her mother's soft snoring from the next room. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Nora closed her eyes without fear. Because outside, a man she barely knew was standing guard. A stranger who'd heard her whispered prayer and decided to answer. Tomorrow would bring new problems, new threats, new battles. But tonight she was safe, and that was enough. Morning came too soon. Nora woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. For 3 seconds, she felt peaceful. Then memory crashed back. Garrett, the text, the truck parked 2 houses down. She sat up, checked her phone, 6 a.m., no new messages. Through the window, she could see Wyatt's truck. Still there, still keeping watch. But there was a voicemail from midnight, a number she didn't recognize at first. Then she saw St. Luke's Regional Medical Center. Her hands shook as she listened. "But Callahan, this is Nurse Patricia from St. Luke's ICU. Your mother was brought in by ambulance around 11:30 last night. She had a fall. We need you to come in as soon as possible." Nora's blood went cold. She'd been asleep, exhausted from everything. She'd never heard her phone ring. She called back immediately. "St. Luke's Regional Medical Center. How may I direct your call?" "My mother, Lillian Callahan. She was admitted last night. I just got the message. Hold, please." Elevator music. 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Third floor ICU. "This is Nurse Patricia. This is Nora Callahan, Lillian's daughter." "What happened?" Patricia's voice was gentle, professional. "Your mother's neighbor found her at the bottom of the stairs around 11:15 last night. She'd gotten confused, wandered to the staircase. We think she was looking for something. She fell from the top step." Nora felt the room tilt. The stairs. The stairs she'd been meaning to gate off for months. "Is she okay?" "She's stable now, but she fractured her left hip in 2 places. She'll need surgery." Nora closed her eyes. "When Dr. Reese wants to operate this afternoon, 2 o'clock. But there's a complication." "Of course there was. Your mother's insurance." Patricia paused. "It's denying coverage for the procedure. Something about a pre-existing condition clause." "She has Alzheimer's." Nora's voice came out flat. "That's not a pre-existing condition for a broken hip." "I know, but insurance companies have their policies. The hospital requires a deposit, $55,000, before we can proceed." The number hung in the air like smoke. "I don't have that," Nora whispered. "I don't have anything close to that, I understand." Patricia's voice was kind. Too kind. "We can arrange a payment plan, or you could consider transferring her to County General. They have charity care." County General was 3 hours away, understaffed, overcrowded. People went there to die. "How long do I have to get the money to Reese can delay the surgery until tomorrow morning? After that, the risk of complications increases significantly." "Complications. Medical speak for death. I'll be there in an hour," Nora said. She hung up, sat on the edge of her bed, stared at her hands. $55,000. She made $32,000 a year at the diner. Had $800 in her checking account. Negative $300 in savings. Credit cards maxed out years ago. No assets except a 12-year-old Honda that barely ran. Her mother was going to die because Nora was poor. The thought was so clear it hurt. She got dressed, jeans, sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup. What was the point? When she stepped outside, Wyatt was leaning against his truck, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Thought you might need this." He handed her one. The coffee was exactly how she liked it. Cream, 2 sugars. How did he know? "Heard your phone ring last night," Wyatt said. "Figured it was the hospital." "My mother fell." Nora's voice cracked. "Broke her hip. She needs surgery. I'll drive you." "You don't have to, Nora." His voice was firm. "Let me help." The drive to St. Luke's took 40 minutes. Wyatt didn't fill the silence with questions, didn't offer false comfort, just drove. Steady, present. Nora watched Idaho roll past the window. Mountains in the distance. Pine forests, rivers running cold and clear. Beautiful country. She'd lived here her whole life and never really seen it. At the hospital, Wyatt parked in the visitor lot, walked with her to the main entrance, stopped at the doors. "I'll wait out here," he said, "unless you want me to come in." "No," Nora managed a weak smile. "I'll be okay." She wasn't okay. Lillian looked so small in the hospital bed. 76 years old and she'd shrunk, skin paper thin, bones fragile as bird wings, an IV in her left arm, monitors beeping a steady rhythm. She was sleeping, or sedated. Nora couldn't tell. Mrs. Callahan, a young doctor, appeared in the doorway. "I'm Dr. Reese. We spoke on the phone. They sat in a consultation room." Dr. Reese showed her x-rays, explained the fracture, the surgery, the recovery. His words were careful, practiced. The speech he gave to families who couldn't afford care. "Without surgery," Nora asked. "What happens?" Dr. Reese was quiet for a moment. "Your mother won't walk again. The pain will be significant. We can manage it with medication, but her quality of life will be severely diminished. And given her age and the Alzheimer's." He trailed off. "How long?" "6 months, maybe less. And with the surgery, she could have years. The procedure is routine. The risk is minimal. But without the deposit, hospital policy prohibits us from moving forward." Nora looked at the x-rays, at her mother's bones, broken because Nora hadn't installed a gate, broken because Nora was working 2 shifts, broken because Nora couldn't afford to quit and care for her full time. Broken because of Nora. "I need time," she said, "to get the money. You have until tomorrow morning." Dr. Reese stood. "I'm sorry, I wish I could do more." When Nora returned to the waiting room, Wyatt was on his phone. He saw her face and hung up immediately. "What do you need?" she told him. "Everything, the surgery, the deposit, the impossible timeline." Wyatt listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer empty promises. When she finished, he made a call. "Wade, it's Stone. I need the Brotherhood. All of them. Yeah, today." He paused. 55,000 by tomorrow morning. He met Nora's eyes. "No," she didn't ask. "I'm offering." He hung up. "What did you just do?" Nora asked. "Called in some favors." Wyatt pocketed his phone. "The angels take care of their own. And right now, that includes you. I'm not one of yours. You asked for help." His voice was gentle. "Even if you didn't know you were asking, that whisper yesterday, that prayer, I heard it, we heard it, and we answer." Within 2 hours, Wyatt's phone was ringing constantly. Brothers checking in, chapters from 3 states, everyone asking what was needed. By noon, Wade Sullivan pulled up to the hospital on his motorcycle. 62 years old, gray beard to his chest, arms covered in ink that told stories Nora didn't want to know. He hugged Wyatt like family, turned to Nora. "Heard about your mom." Wade's voice was gravel. "We're organizing a ride fundraiser. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., entry fee $50. We'll get sponsors, cover the surgery and then some. I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking," Wade said simply. "We're offering." By evening, the plan was in motion. 200 bikers confirmed, route map through 3 counties. Local businesses pledging sponsorships. The Idaho chapter president putting up $5,000 of his own money. Nora sat in Lillian's hospital room. Watched her mother sleep. Watched the monitors. Tried to process what was happening. Strangers were saving her mother's life. People she didn't know. Would never have asked. Were giving their money. Their time. Their effort. For what? Because one of them overheard a whispered plea. Wyatt appeared in the doorway, holding 2 sandwiches from the cafeteria. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." He handed her a sandwich, sat in the chair next to her. They ate in silence, Lillian's breathing steady between them. "Why are you doing this?" Nora finally asked. "Really?" Why? Wyatt was quiet for a long moment, staring at Lillian, at this woman he'd never met before yesterday. "My daughter's name was Claire," he said. "Married a guy named Derek. Good job, nice house. Seemed perfect." He paused. "Took 3 years before I saw the bruises. Another year before she admitted what was happening. I told her to leave. Offered her money, a place to stay, protection. What happened? She said she loved him, said he was getting better, said she could fix him." Wyatt's voice went hollow. 2 months later, Derek put her in the hospital. Broken jaw, fractured skull, internal bleeding. Nora's throat tightened. I'm sorry. She survived that time. Wyatt continued. Pressed charges, got a restraining order, did everything right. He stared at his hands. Derek showed up at her apartment 3 weeks later, shot her twice. Then himself, oh God. I was 5 miles away. Wyatt's voice cracked. Getting groceries. She called me, said she was scared, said Derek was outside. I told her to call the police, that I'd be right there. I was 5 miles away. You couldn't have known. I should have gone faster, should have run every light, should have broken every law. He looked at Nora. By the time I got there, she was gone. And I swore, never again. Never would I hear a woman scared and not act. Never would I be 5 miles away when I should have been right there. The room was silent except for the monitors. I'm not your daughter, Nora said softly. No, but you're someone's daughter, and that's enough. That night, Nora stayed at the hospital. Wyatt stayed too, sleeping in the waiting room chair, keeping watch even here. At 3 a.m., Lillian woke, confused, agitated, pulling at her IV. Mom. Nora took her hands gently. You're in the hospital. You fell. You're safe. Lillian looked at her, really looked, and for just a moment recognition flickered. Nora. Her voice was weak. Baby, I'm here, Mom. Where's Garrett? The question hit like a fist. He's not here, Nora said. He's gone. Good. Lillian's eyes were clear now, clearer than they'd been in months. He hurt you, I always knew. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks. It's okay, Mom. No. Lillian gripped her hand with surprising strength. It's not okay, but you're free now. You left him. You're safe, yes. Nora lied. I'm safe. Lillian's eyes drifted closed. When she spoke again, her voice was distant. There's a key, safety deposit box, Bank of Idaho. Downtown branch, box 217. What's in it, Mom? Everything, Lillian whispered. All the letters you sent me, all the proof, I saved it all for when you were ready to fight. Then she slipped back into sleep, back into the fog of Alzheimer's, back to not knowing her daughter's name. But the message was delivered. Nora sat frozen. Letters, proof, 23 years of evidence her mother had kept secret. She'd written to Lillian constantly during her marriage. Letters Garrett never knew about, describing the abuse, the fear, the bruises she hid under long sleeves. And Lillian had saved them all. The fundraiser ride started at dawn, 237 motorcycles, chrome glinting in the September sun, leather and ink in engines roaring like thunder. Wyatt had moved Nora to a hotel for the night, away from her house, away from Garrett. She stood in the parking lot of Riverside Diner and watched the bikers assemble. They came from everywhere, Boise, Twin Falls, Wynn, Pocatello, even a few from Montana and Wyoming, men and women, young and old, all wearing their colors, all here for a stranger's mother. The Idaho chapter president addressed the crowd. A man called Thorne, 65 years old, voice like he'd gargled gravel. We ride for Lillian Callahan today, a woman most of us never met, but her daughter needed help. And when the call goes out, we answer. That's what brotherhood means. That's what family means. The crowd roared approval. Nora felt tears on her face, couldn't stop them. Wyatt appeared beside her. You ready for what? To ride with us. He handed her a helmet. You're the guest of honor. She rode behind Wyatt at the front of the pack, 237 bikes behind them. The sound was overwhelming, beautiful, a wall of noise that announced their presence to the entire valley. They rode through Riverside, through neighboring towns, past farms and forests, a serpent of chrome and leather winding through Idaho back roads. People lined the streets, some cheering, some silent, some holding signs. Support DV survivors. Angels among us. Ride safe. The route took 4 hours. By the time they returned to the diner, donations had poured in. Entry fees, sponsorships, direct donations from businesses, even some civilians who'd heard the story. Wade counted it all, his weathered hands careful with each bill. $62,437, he announced. The crowd erupted. Nora couldn't speak, could barely breathe. More than enough for surgery, Wyatt said quietly. The rest goes to your mom's recovery, medicine, physical therapy, whatever she needs. Nora turned to him. To this man she'd known for less than 48 hours. This stranger who'd heard her whisper and decided to answer. Thank you. The words weren't enough. Would never be enough. You did this, Wyatt said, by asking for help, by letting us in. That afternoon, Dr. Reese performed the surgery. 3 hours in the operating room. Wyatt and Wade sat with Nora in the waiting room, not talking, just present. When Dr. Reese emerged, his face was calm. The surgery went well. Your mother is stable. Recovery will take time, but I'm optimistic. Nora collapsed into a chair, relief washing through her like water. She's going to live. She visited Lillian in recovery. Her mother was sleeping, peaceful. The monitors showed strong vitals, steady heartbeat. Nora held her hand, whispered thank you to a woman who couldn't hear. That evening, Nora returned to her house to gather some things. Wyatt insisted on coming with her. Garrett's truck was gone. The street was empty, too empty. Inside, Nora packed a bag, clothes, toiletries, her mother's medications, all the while feeling watched, feeling wrong. She was in the bedroom when she heard it, the front door opening. Garrett stood in the living room, hands in his pockets, calm, too calm. Heard about your mom, he said. Shame about the fall. Get out, Nora's voice shook. That's no way to greet your husband, ex-husband, Garrett smiled. Saw all those bikers today. Real touching. You sleeping with one of them yet? Leave, now. Wyatt appeared in the hallway, silent, solid. Garrett's expression hardened. There he is, the hero. You think you're protecting her? I think you should go. Wyatt's voice was calm, dangerous. This is my town. Garrett took a step forward. These are my streets. My friends run this place. You're just passing through. Then I'll pass through slow. Wyatt didn't move, real slow. The two men stared at each other. Decades of violence between them. Different kinds, same result. Finally, Garrett laughed, turned to leave, stopped at the door. Enjoy this while it lasts, Nora. Because it won't. It never does. You always come back. You always will. Then he was gone. Nora sank onto the couch, shaking. Wyatt locked the door, checked the windows, sat beside her. He's not going to stop, Nora whispered. Is he? No, Wyatt said honestly. Men like that never do. Not until they're made to. How do you make them stop? You fight back, legally, properly. You build a case, get evidence, make it impossible for him to hide. Nora thought about the safety deposit box. About 23 years of letters. What if I have evidence? Wyatt looked at her. Then we use it. The next morning, Nora went to Bank of Idaho, downtown branch, asked for box 217. The clerk led her to the vault, left her alone with the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all in Nora's handwriting, all addressed to Lillian, dating back 27 years. Nora opened the first one. Her own words from 1997. Mom, Garrett hit me again. I can't tell anyone. He says it's my fault. Says I make him angry. I think he might be right. The second letter, 2 months later. He broke my wrist. Told the doctor I fell. I'm so tired, Mom. I don't know how to leave. Letter after letter, year after year. A chronicle of abuse written in real time. But there was more, photos. Polaroids Nora had taken of her own bruises, hidden from Garrett, sent to her mother for safekeeping. Hospital records, emergency room visits, a pattern documented across decades, and a journal. Lillian's handwriting, dates, times, phone calls where Nora had called crying, visits where she'd seen the marks, everything. 23 years of evidence. Nora sat on the floor of the bank vault and cried. Her mother had known, had always known, had been building this case for the day when Nora was finally strong enough to use it. She gathered everything, carefully, took it to a lawyer, Amanda Reese, no relation to the doctor, young, sharp, specialized in domestic violence cases. This is Amanda looked through the evidence, her professional composure cracking. This is ironclad. With this, we can file criminal charges, get a permanent restraining order. He'll do time. How long will it take? The preliminary hearing could be scheduled within 2 weeks. Amanda met Nora's eyes. Are you ready for this? Because once we start, Garrett will fight back. Hard. Nora thought about Lillian, about Wyatt, about Wade and the 200 bikers who'd ridden for a stranger. I'm ready, she said. She wasn't ready. 2 days after filing the restraining order petition, Nora came home to find her car tires slashed. All four of them. The next day, her mailbox was torn from the ground, bent in half. The day after that, a brick through her living room window. A note wrapped around it. Drop the charges. Wyatt installed cameras, changed her locks, stayed close. But he couldn't be everywhere. Nora was walking to her car after her shift when Garrett appeared from the shadows. We need to talk. No. Nora kept walking. He grabbed her arm, hard enough to bruise. I said we need to talk. Let go of me. Or what? He pulled her closer. You'll call your biker friends. He laughed. They can't protect you forever. Eventually you'll be alone, and when you are, let her go. Wyatt's voice cut through the parking lot. He stood 10 feet away, phone in hand, recording everything. Garrett released her, stepped back. You're making a big mistake, Nora, he said, both of you. Then he walked away. Nora's arm throbbed where he'd grabbed her. The bruise would show by tomorrow. More evidence, Wyatt said quietly. Every time he touches you, every time he threatens you, we document it, build the case. I'm scared, Nora admitted. Good. Fear keeps you careful, but don't let it stop you. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for October 15th, 3 weeks away. 3 weeks of hell. Garrett followed her everywhere. To the diner, to the hospital, to the grocery store, always just far enough away to claim coincidence. Her phone rang constantly. Different numbers, same voice, hanging up when she answered. At the hospital, someone had tried to access Lillian's room. A man claiming to be family. Security stopped him. The description matched Garrett. Nora couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. Wyatt stayed close. But even he looked tired, worn down. This can't go on forever, Nora said one evening. They were sitting in her living room, curtains drawn, doors locked, living like prisoners. It won't, Wyatt said. The hearing is in 1 week. After that, the judge will issue a formal restraining order. Make it a crime for him to come near you, and if he violates it, then he goes to jail. But Nora had learned years ago, restraining orders were paper, and paper didn't stop fists. On October 14th, the day before the hearing, Nora's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Mom. The voice stopped her heart. Ivy, Her daughter's voice, after 8 years. I'm in town. We need to talk. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground soon. Ivy walked in and Nora's breath caught. 30 years old now. Beautiful. She looked like Nora had at that age. Before Garrett. Before the fear. Hi, Mom. Hi, baby. They sat across from each other. Strangers with shared DNA. Dad called me, Ivy said. Told me you're trying to put him in jail. Nora's chest tightened. That's not... He said you're lying, making things up, that you're mentally unstable. I'm not lying. He said you never gave him a chance after the divorce, that you turned me against him. Nora wanted to scream, to shake her daughter, to make her see me. Instead, she spoke quietly. When's the last time you saw your father hit someone? Ivy looked away. He never... When you were 12, Nora's voice was steady. You came downstairs, saw him punch me, saw me fall. You ran back to your room, pretended you didn't see. That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened. And the next morning I told you I fell down the stairs, and you wanted to believe it. So you did. Ivy's hands shook around her coffee cup. I have evidence, Nora said. 23 years of it. Photos, letters, hospital records. Your father is a violent man, and tomorrow I'm going to prove it. He said you're seeing someone. Some criminal. Some biker. His name is Wyatt, and he's the first person in 23 years who heard me say I was scared and actually did something about it. Ivy was quiet for a long moment. I have to go, she stood. Ivy, please. I need to think, her daughter's voice cracked. I need time. Then she was gone. Nora sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at her untouched coffee. She'd lost her daughter. Again. That night, Wyatt found her crying in her car. She doesn't believe me, Nora said. My own daughter doesn't believe me. Give her time. I don't have time. Tomorrow's the hearing. Tomorrow, Garrett's going to fight back with everything he has, and my daughter is on his side. Then you fight harder. Wyatt's voice was firm. You show that judge the truth, you make it impossible to ignore. The next morning, Nora dressed in her best clothes, a navy dress, simple jewelry, hair neat, professional. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. The hearing was at 9 a.m. The courthouse was small, wood paneling and fluorescent lights. Amanda Reese was already there, organizing papers. Garrett arrived with his lawyer, a man named Theodore Pierce, expensive suit, slick back hair, the kind of lawyer who defended the guilty and won. Garrett saw Nora, smiled, like they were old friends. Then the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Margaret Sullivan presided. Nora's heart sank. Judge Sullivan played bridge with Garrett's mother, had known Garrett since he was a child. This wasn't a fair fight. Amanda presented the evidence. The letters, the photos, the hospital records, 23 years laid bare. It was damning, undeniable. Theodore Pierce cross-examined, gentle, sympathetic. Then, Callahan, isn't it true you suffer from depression? Nora hesitated. I've been treated for depression and anxiety, him. Isn't it possible these letters written during periods of mental distress might not reflect reality? They reflect what happened, or what you believed happened. Pierce smiled kindly. Depression can distort perception, create memories that didn't occur. I didn't imagine the bruises, but you did photograph them yourself. Correct after the fact, without witnesses, without medical documentation for most of them. I was scared. I hid it. Or you were confused, distressed, and you created a narrative to explain your unhappiness. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Judge Sullivan took a brief recess, returned with her decision. Given the evidence presented, I'm granting a temporary restraining order. Mr. Voss is to maintain a distance of 500 feet from Mrs. Callahan and her mother. Nora felt relief flood through her. Then Judge Sullivan continued. However, I have concerns about the reliability of some evidence. The next hearing will be in 30 days. At that time, we'll determine if a permanent order is warranted. 30 days. Not immediately. Not permanent. Pierce smiled. Garrett smiled. Nora felt the world tilt. Outside the courthouse, Amanda tried to reassure her. This is normal. Judges like to see pattern of behavior. 30 days isn't long, but it felt like forever. Wyatt was waiting by his truck. The order is temporary, Nora said. He won. Again. He didn't win. The order stands. He can't come near you for 30 days. Then what? Then we do this again. With more evidence, more proof. Nora leaned against the truck. Exhausted, she didn't see Garrett until he was 5 feet away. Restraining order starts today, he said pleasantly. So I wanted to say goodbye. For now, stay back. Wyatt moved between them, 500 feet. Garrett held up his hands. I'm aware. He looked at Nora. See you in 30 days. We'll settle this properly then. There's nothing to settle. There's everything to settle. Garrett's smile faded. You're my wife. You'll always be my wife. And when this is over, you're coming home. He walked away. Nora watched him go, watched him climb into his truck, watched him drive away. But she knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, she sat with Lillian in the hospital. Her mother was healing slowly. Physical therapy starting tomorrow. The doctors were optimistic about recovery. One of them had to be okay. Wyatt called, checking in, making sure she was safe. I'm fine, she lied. Lock the doors, he said. Call me if anything happens. Anything at all, I will. She hung up, sat in silence, listened to her mother breathe. And for the first time since this began, Nora wondered if fighting back was worth it. If maybe Garrett was right. If maybe she should just give up. The thought terrified her because it felt like relief. 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Nora moved through October like a ghost. Work, hospital, home. The restraining order kept Garrett 500 feet away, but it didn't stop the watching. The truck parked just outside the legal boundary. The phone calls from unknown numbers. The flowers delivered to the diner. Dead roses with no note. He was everywhere and nowhere. Lillian was improving, physical therapy twice a day, learning to walk again with a walker. Some days she knew Nora. Most days she didn't. But she was alive, fighting. That had to be enough. The second hearing was scheduled for November 12th. 2 weeks away. Nora couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, lost more weight she didn't have to lose. Dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Wyatt stayed close, but even his presence couldn't stop the nightmares. Every night, the same dream. Garrett walking toward her, smiling, reaching out, and Nora unable to move, unable to scream, unable to run. She'd wake up gasping, checking the locks, checking the windows, knowing he was out there somewhere, waiting. Amanda Reese called twice a week, building the case, documenting every violation, every threatening text, every dead flower, every truck parked just beyond 500 feet. "It's working," Amanda said. "We're building an undeniable pattern. The judge will have to grant the permanent order." But Nora had stopped believing in justice. The morning of November 5th, Nora was visiting Lillian when her mother suddenly grabbed her hand, squeezed hard. "Baby, I'm here, Mom." Lillian's eyes were clear, focused. The fog lifted for just a moment. The hearing. "When is it next week?" Nora's throat tightened. "November 12th. You fight." Lillian's voice was stronger than it had been in months. "You hear me? You don't back down. You don't give up. That man took 23 years. Don't let him take one more day." "Mom, I'm trying." "Try harder." Lillian's grip was iron. "I didn't save those letters for nothing. I didn't keep all that evidence so you could whisper." You roar, Nora. You stand in that courtroom and you roar. Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks. "What if they don't believe me? Make them believe." Lillian's eyes started to drift, started to fade back into the fog. "Promise me." "I promise." Lillian smiled, released her hand, closed her eyes. When she woke an hour later, she didn't know Nora's name, but the message was delivered. That evening, Wyatt knocked on Nora's door. His face was grim. "We need to talk." Inside, he showed her his phone, a text message from an unknown number. "Tell your girlfriend to drop the charges, or I hurt people she cares about." Starting with the old lady in the hospital. Nora's blood went cold. "He threatened my mother." "He's desperate," Wyatt said. "The hearing's in a week. He knows he's losing, so he's escalating." "What do I do?" "We tell Amanda. We tell the police. We document everything." "The police?" Nora laughed bitterly. "You mean Sheriff Hargrove, Garrett's best friend?" "There are state police. FBI if it comes to that. It won't matter." Nora sank onto the couch. "He's going to win. He always wins." Wyatt sat beside her, took her hands, looked directly into her eyes. "Listen to me. That man has controlled you for 23 years, made you believe you're weak, made you believe you can't fight back, made you believe he's invincible. He is invincible. Here, in this town." "No," Wyatt's voice was firm. "He's a coward who hits women. That's all he is. That's all he's ever been. And cowards break when you stand up to them. I've been standing up. You've been surviving." Wyatt squeezed her hands. "Now it's time to fight." The next morning, Nora went to the hospital early, asked to speak with Lillian's nurse. "I need security on my mother's room." 24/7, someone threatened her. The nurse was a woman named Patricia, early 50s, kind eyes that had seen too much. "Does this have to do with your ex-husband?" Nora nodded. Patricia's expression hardened. "I'll talk to administration. We don't tolerate threats against our patients." By afternoon, a security guard was posted outside Lillian's room. By evening, the hospital had filed a report with the police. Sheriff Hargrove himself came to take the statement. He walked into Lillian's room like he owned it. 48 years old, athletic build, the kind of man who wore authority like a second skin. "Nora," his voice was professional, cold. "I hear you're making accusations against Garrett." "Not accusations, threats. He texted threats against my mother." "Do you have proof?" Wyatt showed him the text. Hargrove barely glanced at it. "Unknown number. Could be anyone. It's him." "Can you prove that?" Nora felt rage building. The same rage she'd swallowed for 23 years. The same rage she'd learned to bury under fear. "Not this time." "You know it's him," she said, her voice steady, strong. "You know exactly what kind of man he is, and you're protecting him." "I'm not protecting anyone. I'm doing my job, and my job requires evidence. I have evidence. 23 years of it. Hospital records, letters, photographs, a pattern of abuse documented across decades." Hargrove's jaw tightened. "Garrett's been under a lot of stress. The divorce, the restraining order. You dragging him through court. I'm dragging him through court. Nora stood, her voice rising. He beat me for 23 years. He controlled me, isolated me, made me believe I was nothing. And you're worried about his stress. That's not what I get out. Nora pointed to the door. Get out of my mother's room. And don't come back unless you're ready to do your actual job. Hargrove stared at her, surprised, like he'd never heard her speak above a whisper. Then he left. Wyatt was leaning against the wall outside, arms crossed. He'd heard everything. That was good, he said. That was really good. Nora was shaking. From anger, from fear, from the realization that she'd just told off the sheriff. I can't believe I did that. Believe it. You found your voice. But that night, doubt crept back in. Hargrove was Garrett's friend. He'd tell him what happened. Garrett would be furious. The retaliation came faster than expected. The next morning, Nora arrived at work to find her manager waiting. Eddie, the cook who'd been kind to her for 12 years. Nora, we need to talk. They sat in the back office. Eddie wouldn't meet her eyes. I got a call from the owner. He's concerned about the situation with your ex-husband. The restraining order, the court case, he thinks it's creating a disturbance. I haven't done anything wrong, I know. Eddie's voice was pained. But Garrett's been coming around, talking to customers, suggesting that maybe the diner isn't a safe place, that maybe there could be violence. He's lying, I know that too. But customers are nervous, business is down, and the owner. He paused. He wants you to take a leave of absence until things settle down. Nora felt the floor drop out from under her. You're firing me. It's not firing. It's temporary. Just until I need this job, Eddie. I have bills, my mother's medical expenses. I can't afford to take leave. I'm sorry. Eddie finally looked at her. I really am. But it's out of my hands. How long until the court case is resolved? That could be months, I know. Nora walked out of the diner in a daze. 12 years, gone. Because Garrett made phone calls, applied pressure, used his influence. She sat in her car, stared at the steering wheel, felt the walls closing in. No Joe. No income. Medical bills piling up. The hearing in 6 days. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then she did. Heard you got fired. Garrett's voice, smooth, satisfied. That's what happens when you fight me, Nora. I take everything. Your jaw, your daughter, your dignity. And if you keep pushing, I'll take your mother too. You stay away from her. Drop the charges. Apologize. Come back where you belong. Or I keep taking, never. We'll see. The line went dead. Nora drove to the bank, checked her account, $862. Rent was due in a week, $1,500. Lillian's medications, $400 monthly. Car insurance, gas, food. The math was simple. She had 3 weeks before she lost everything. She could drop the charges, go back to Garrett, survive. Or she could fight and lose anyway. The thought paralyzed her. That evening, Wyatt found her sitting in her car outside Lillian's hospital, staring at nothing. He didn't ask what was wrong, just opened the door, helped her out, held her while she cried. I lost my job, she said into his chest. He made them fire me. I know, Wade told me. Small town, word travels. I can't do this anymore. I don't have the strength. Yes, you do. I don't. Nora pulled back, looked at him. I'm tired, Wyatt. So tired. Maybe he's right. Maybe I should just... Don't, his voice was sharp. Don't you dare give up now. What choice do I have? The choice to stand. Wyatt held her shoulders. The choice to walk into that courtroom in 6 days and tell the truth. The choice to stop whispering and start roaring. Roaring doesn't pay my rent. The angels will help. I can't keep taking charity. It's not charity, it's family. And family helps family. Nora wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that strangers would keep supporting her, that this would end well, that she could actually win. But 23 years of losing had taught her better. 3 days before the hearing, Ivy called. Mom, can we meet? They met at the same coffee shop. Ivy looked different, older, tired, like she hadn't slept. I need to tell you something. Ivy's hands shook around her coffee cup. Okay, I went to see Dad after our last talk. I wanted to hear his side, wanted to understand. Nora braced herself. He was angry, really angry. Started yelling about you, about Wyatt, about the restraining order. Ivy's voice cracked. I told him to calm down. And what? He hit me. Ivy touched her cheek, where a fading bruise still showed under makeup. Just once, not hard. But he hit me. Oh, baby. Nora reached across the table. Ivy pulled back. Not from anger, from shame. I always thought you were exaggerating, that maybe you were oversensitive, that if you just tried harder, been better, he wouldn't get angry. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But it wasn't about trying. It was never about trying. No, it was about control. I'm sorry. Ivy sobbed. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I took his side. I'm sorry for everything. Nora moved around the table, pulled her daughter into her arms, held her while she cried. It's okay. You're here now. That's what matters. I want to testify. Ivy pulled back. At the hearing, I want to tell them what he did, what I saw. Are you sure? I'm sure. For the first time in my life, I'm sure. The night before the hearing, Nora couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, stared at the ceiling, ran through everything in her mind. The evidence, the letters, the photos, Ivy's testimony. It should be enough. But should and would were different things. At 2 a.m. her phone rang. Lillian's nurse. Your mother is asking for you. You should come. Nora drove to the hospital, heart pounding, expecting the worst. But Lillian was sitting up in bed, alert, focused. The clearest Nora had seen her in years. Tomorrow's the hearing, Lillian said. Yes, you scared? Terrified. Good. Lillian took her hand. Fear means you care, means you're fighting for something that matters. What if I would lose, then you lose? But at least you fought. At least you didn't spend the rest of your life wondering what if. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are. Lillian's grip was firm. You've been strong for 23 years. Surviving is strength. Enduring is strength. You just didn't know it. Nora felt tears on her face. Tomorrow you walk into that courtroom and you tell your truth. Loudly, clearly, no more whispers. Lillian's eyes blazed. You make them hear you. What if they don't listen? Then you make them listen anyway. You don't stop. You don't back down. You show that man he doesn't own you anymore. They sat together in the quiet hospital room. Mother and daughter. For the first time in months, Lillian was fully present. I'm proud of you, Lillian said. Always have been, even when I couldn't remember your name. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow you roar. The courthouse was packed. November 12th, 9 a.m. Cold morning. First snow of the season, falling soft and quiet. Nora wore the same navy dress, sat at the plaintiff's table with Amanda Reese. Behind her, Wyatt and Wade, a dozen other angels, silent support. Across the aisle, Garrett and Theodore Pierce. Garrett looked confident, relaxed, like he'd already won. All rise. Judge Margaret Sullivan entered, took her seat, adjusted her glasses. Be seated. We're here for the matter of Callahan versus Voss. Petition for permanent restraining order. Amanda stood. Your Honor, we have substantial evidence of a pattern of abuse spanning 23 years. We have hospital records, photographs, written documentation, and new testimony from the defendant's daughter. Pierce stood. Your Honor, we maintain that Mrs. Callahan suffers from documented mental health issues that color her perception of events. This is a vindictive ex-wife attempting to use the courts to punish a man who's moved on with his life. The hearing began. Amanda called her first witness, Dr. Ellen Martinez, the emergency room physician who treated Nora 6 times over 15 years. Each time for injuries Nora claimed were accidents. Looking back, Dr. Martinez testified, the pattern is clear, bruises in defensive positions, fractures consistent with assault. But at the time I took her word, I should have asked more questions. Pierce cross-examined, gently suggesting that accidents happen, that patterns can be coincidental. Next, Amanda presented the letters, all 73 of them, written to Lillian over 23 years, documenting abuse in real time. Pierce objected. Hearsay, no corroboration, written by a woman with diagnosed depression. Judge Sullivan allowed them anyway. Then Ivy took the stand, 30 years old, Garrett's daughter, Trembling as she was sworn in, Amanda asked her direct questions. When did you first become aware of abuse in your parents' marriage? I was 12. Ivy's voice was quiet. I came downstairs late one night, saw my father hit my mother, saw her fall. I ran back to my room, pretended I didn't see. What happened the next morning, Mom had a black eye. She told me she fell down the stairs. I wanted to believe her, so I did. Have you ever witnessed your father being violent toward anyone else? Ivy looked at Garrett. He stared back, stone-faced. Yes, 2 weeks ago. He hit me. The courtroom erupted. Judge Sullivan called for order. Can you describe what happened? I confronted him about Mom's accusations. He got angry, started yelling. I told him to calm down. And Ivy touched her cheek. He slapped me. Then he apologized. Said I'd made him angry, that it was my fault. Nora watched Garrett, watched his mask slip just for a second, saw the rage underneath. Pierce cross-examined, suggested that Ivy was confused, emotionally compromised, influenced by her mother. But Ivy didn't waver, didn't back down. My father is an abuser, she said clearly. I didn't want to believe it, but it's true, and my mother deserves protection. Then Amanda called her next witness, Sheriff Boyd Hargrove. The courtroom went silent. Hargrove walked to the stand, was sworn in. Looked uncomfortable. Sheriff Hargrove, Amanda's voice was sharp. How long have you known the defendant? 32 years. We went to school together. Would you describe Mr. Voss as a friend? Yes. Have you ever dismissed domestic violence complaints filed against Mr. Voss? Hargrove hesitated. In my professional judgment, the complaints lack sufficient evidence. How many complaints? 3. All filed by Mrs. Callahan. Yes. Did you investigate thoroughly? I investigated appropriately. Amanda pulled out documents. Reports Hargrove had filed. 2 paragraphs each. Minimal detail, no follow-up. Does this represent a thorough investigation? Sheriff Hargrove's jaw tightened. I did my job. Your job. Or your friend a favor. Objection. Pierce was on his feet. Sustained, Judge Sullivan warned Amanda. But the point was made. Amanda continued. Sheriff, do you have a daughter? Hargrove blinked, surprised. Yes, she's 16. If someone hurt her, if someone abused her, would you want the responding officer to take her seriously, to investigate thoroughly, to protect her? Of course. Then why didn't you extend that same protection to Mrs. Callahan's silence? Hargrove stared at his hands. His face was red. I don't know, he said quietly. Say again, I don't know. Hargrove looked up, met Nora's eyes. I should have done more, investigated harder, taken it seriously. But he was my friend, and he stopped. I failed her. The courtroom was silent, no further questions. Amanda sat down. Pierce didn't cross-examine. Then Amanda stood again. Your Honor, I have one more witness, if the court will permit. Judge Sullivan looked at her watch. Who? Lillian Callahan, the petitioner's mother. Pierce shot to his feet. Objection. Mrs. Callahan suffers from advanced Alzheimer's. She's not competent to testify. Amanda turned to the judge. Your Honor, Mrs. Callahan is having a lucid period. Her doctors have confirmed it. She has critical testimony about witnessing decades of abuse. Judge Sullivan considered. I'll allow it, but I reserve the right to stop this testimony if the witness appears confused or incompetent. Lillian was wheeled into the courtroom. Walker beside her, Nurse Patricia supporting her arm. She looked frail, 76 years old, paper-thin skin, but her eyes were clear. The bailiff helped her into the witness stand. She was sworn in. Amanda approached gently. Mrs. Callahan, do you know where you are? I'm in a courtroom. Lillian's voice was steady. For my daughter Nora. Do you know who I am? You're her lawyer. Amanda. The courtroom was silent. Everyone watching this elderly woman, wondering if the fog would return. Mrs. Callahan, Amanda said softly. How long was your daughter married to Garrett Voss? 23 years. Lillian looked at Garrett, her gaze direct. 23 years too long. Did you witness abuse during that time, every time she visited me? Lillian's voice strengthened, every time. New bruises, new excuses. She'd say she fell, bumped into something. Clumsy. But I knew. How did you know? Because I'm her mother. Lillian looked at Nora, tears in both their eyes. A mother knows when her child is hurting. when she's scared, when she's lying to protect someone who doesn't deserve it. What did you do with that knowledge? I saved everything. Every letter she sent me describing what he did, every photo, every phone call when she cried. I documented it all. She paused. For 23 years, I kept that evidence, waiting, praying, that one day my daughter would be strong enough to use it. Nora was crying now, openly. Mrs. Callahan. Amanda's voice was gentle. Why are you here today? Lillian looked directly at Judge Sullivan. Because my daughter whispered for 23 years, prayed for help, begged for someone to listen, and nobody did. She turned to face the courtroom. Today she's not whispering anymore. Today she's roaring, and I'm here to roar with her. The courtroom was absolutely silent. No further questions, Amanda said. Pierce stood, started to approach, then stopped, looked at Lillian, at this elderly woman with Alzheimer's who was more lucid and powerful than anyone in the room. No questions, Your Honor. As they wheeled Lillian out, she looked at Nora, winked. Then her eyes began to drift, the fog returning. But the testimony was delivered. Judge Sullivan called a recess. Outside in the hallway, Wyatt found Hargrove. The sheriff was leaning against the wall, head down. Thank you, Wyatt said, for telling the truth. Hargrove looked at him. I have a daughter. Wyatt nodded. I know, I keep thinking, what if it was her? What if someone heard her and nobody believed her? Hargrove's voice cracked. I couldn't live with that. Then do better going forward. I will. I'm resigning. Effective today. I don't deserve this badge. Wyatt studied him. Resignation's easy. Staying and fixing the system is hard. Hargrove looked up. What are you saying? I'm saying you made a mistake, a big one. You can run from it or learn from it. Your choice. 30 minutes later, court resumed. Judge Sullivan had reviewed the evidence, had considered the testimony, had weighed credibility. She looked at Garrett, then at Nora. Mr. Voss, based on the evidence presented, I find a clear and convincing pattern of domestic violence spanning 23 years. The testimony of your own daughter is particularly compelling, and Mrs. Lillian Callahan's testimony, despite her condition, was among the most powerful I've heard in 30 years on the bench. Garrett's expression didn't change. I am granting a permanent restraining order. You are to maintain a distance of 1,000 feet from Mrs. Callahan, her residence, her place of employment, and her mother's hospital room. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. She paused. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. The evidence suggests multiple counts of assault battery and witness intimidation. Garrett stood. Your Honor, sit down, Mr. Voss. You have the right to remain silent. Judge Sullivan's voice was ice. I suggest you exercise it, because anything you say right now will likely be used against you in criminal proceedings. Garrett sat. His hands were shaking. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Nora couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was over. She'd won. Amanda hugged her. Ivy hugged her. Wyatt stood back, gave her space, let her have this moment. Then Garrett was standing in front of her. Wyatt moved to intercede, but Nora held up a hand. It's okay. Garrett looked at her, really looked. For the first time in 23 years, she saw something in his eyes besides rage. Fear. He started, then stopped. You actually did it. Yes, I didn't think you had it in you. Neither did I. They stood there. 23 years of marriage, 2 years of divorce, one moment of truth. I'm sorry, Garrett said. It sounded genuine. Maybe it was. I'm sorry for everything. Nora nodded, didn't accept, didn't forgive, just acknowledged. Then Garrett turned and walked away. Pierce following, both of them knowing what came next. Criminal charges, probably prison. Nora watched him go, felt nothing, no anger, no satisfaction, just emptiness where he used to live in her thoughts. You okay, Wyatt asked. I don't know, Nora was honest. I feel, she searched for the word, free, but also terrified. Like I don't know who I am without the fear. You'll figure it out, and I'll be here while you do. 6 months later, spring came into Idaho like a promise. Nora stood in Lillian's hospital room, not a patient room anymore, a rehabilitation center, private, paid for by the settlement from the lawsuit against the hospital for security failures. Lillian was walking, slowly, with a walker. But walking. Look at you, Mom. Nora held the walker steady. I'm trying. Lillian's voice was clearer now. New medications, better care, more lucid days than not. You're doing great. When can I go home soon? The doctors say another month. Good. Lillian smiled. I miss my garden. Outside, Wyatt was waiting in his truck. He'd been patient, hadn't pushed, hadn't assumed, just stayed close while Nora figured out who she was without Garrett. They'd been on 3 dates, real dates. Dinner, movies, long rides through the mountains, getting to know each other without crisis, without fear. It was terrifying in a completely different way. Ready, Wyatt asked as she climbed in. Ready. They drove to the new house. Small, 2 bedrooms, garden and back, purchased with money from Garrett's asset settlement. The judge had been thorough. 23 years of financial abuse repaid in one judgment. Ivy's car was already there. She visited every Sunday now, making up for lost time. Inside the table was set, 4 places. Ivy was cooking, something that smelled like her grandmother's recipe. Hi, Mom. Ivy hugged her. Dinner's almost ready. It smells amazing. Grandma's pot roast. Ivy smiled. I called her. She walked me through it, even remembered the recipe. That's wonderful, honey. They sat around the table. Nora, Wyatt, Ivy, and an empty chair for Lillian. Who would fill it soon? This is nice, Ivy said. All of us together. It is. Nora looked around, at her daughter, at Wyatt, at the home she'd made. It really is. After dinner, Wyatt helped with dishes. Ivy put on music, old songs from Lillian's generation. Can I ask you something? Wyatt dried a plate. Of course. Are you happy? Nora considered. Really considered. I'm getting there, she said. Some days I still wake up scared, still check the locks, still expect him to show up. But then I remember the restraining order, the criminal conviction. 5 years in prison. He can't hurt you anymore, I know. Logically, I know. Nora set down a dish. But 23 years doesn't disappear overnight. No, but it gets easier, does it? Wyatt pulled her close, held her gently. It does, I promise, Lillian. They stood in the kitchen, music playing, Ivy humming along. The evening sun warmed through the windows. Thank you, Nora said into his chest, for hearing me that day, when I whispered. I'll always listen, Wyatt said, whether you whisper or roar. 2 months later, Lillian came home, not to her old house, to Nora's, where her bedroom was on the first floor, where grab bars were installed in the bathroom, where family photos covered every wall. She walked in with her walker, looked around, smiled. This is nice, baby. Welcome home, Mom. That evening they all gathered, Nora, Lillian, Ivy, Wyatt. Wade stopped by, brought flowers. Other angels came and went, checking in, being family. They sat on the back porch, watched the sun set over the mountains. Lillian in her rocking chair, Nora beside her. You did it, Lillian said, her voice clear. You fought back. We did it, Mom, together. No, you did. I just kept the evidence. You found the courage. Nora thought about that day at the diner, hiding in the storage room, whispering into her phone, begging Garrett not to hurt her mother. It felt like a lifetime ago. You taught me, Nora said, how to save myself. I taught you to survive. Lillian squeezed her hand. You taught yourself to live. Inside, Ivy was laughing at something Wyatt said. The sound carried through the open door. Light and free. You have a good man there. Lillian nodded toward Wyatt. I know. Different from Garrett, completely different. Don't let the past stop you from having a future. I'm trying not to. Try harder. Lillian smiled. Life's too short to waste being scared. That night after everyone left, Nora stood in her kitchen, made tea, looked out at the garden Wyatt had helped her plant. Roses. Lillian's favorite. Her phone rang. For just a second, muscle memory kicked in. Fear. Dread. The expectation of Garrett's voice. But the caller ID showed Wyatt, just checking in, he said, making sure you're okay. I'm okay, and she meant it, really meant it. Get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, when they'd planned to ride together, to visit a new trail in the mountains, to just be. Good night, Wyatt. Good night, Nora. She hung up, finished her tea, locked the door, not from fear, just habit. the good kind. In her bedroom, she pulled out a journal, something Amanda had suggested, writing down thoughts, processing trauma, finding her voice on paper. She wrote about the day, about Lillian coming home, about Ivy's laughter, about Wyatt's kindness. Then she wrote about the future, about plans to maybe go back to school, study nursing, help other women who'd been where she was, about traveling, seeing places beyond Idaho, beyond the small world fear had built, about living, really living, for the first time in 23 years. She closed the journal, turned off the light, lay in the darkness. No nightmares came, just dreams of mountains and motorcycles and tomorrows full of possibility. The next morning, Nora woke to sunlight, made coffee, checked on Lillian, found her mother in the garden already, touching the roses, smiling. Beautiful, Lillian said. They are. Nora agreed, not the flowers. Lillian looked at her. You're beautiful when you're happy. Wyatt arrived at 9. They rode north, into the mountains, through forests still wet with morning dew. The air was clean and cold and perfect. They stopped at a viewpoint, looked out over valleys that stretched forever. What are you thinking, Wyatt asked. That I spent 23 years in a cage I didn't know I could open. Nora leaned against him, and now the whole world is out here, waiting. Where do you want to go first? Everywhere. He kissed her then, gentle, patient, asking permission with every movement. She kissed him back, for the first time without fear, without checking over her shoulder, without wondering if she deserved this, just being present, being happy, being free. When they returned home, Ivy and Lillian were cooking together, the kitchen filled with the smell of Sunday dinner, music playing, laughter echoing. Nora stood in the doorway, watched her family, this patchwork of survivors and guardians and second chances. This was enough, not perfect, not without scars, but enough. Ivy looked up, saw her, smiled. Mom, come help. Grandma's teaching me how to make her biscuits. Nora joined them. Wyatt sat at the table. Wade stopped by. They all gathered around, telling stories, making plans, living. And somewhere 500 miles away, Garrett sat in a prison cell, alone, facing the consequences of 23 years of violence. But Nora didn't think about him anymore, didn't give him space in her thoughts, her heart, her life. He was the past, and she was done living there. That evening, as the sun set, they all sat on the porch together, full from dinner, content. At peace, Lillian raised her glass of sweet tea. To family, she said. The kind we choose, they all raised their glasses. To family. Nora looked around, at her mother, her daughter, the man who'd heard her whisper and decided to stay. The brothers who'd stood guard, and she realized something. She wasn't the smallest voice anymore. Wasn't the frightened woman hiding in storage rooms. Wasn't the victim who only knew how to survive. She was Nora Callahan. Survivor, fighter, mother, daughter, woman. And her voice, when she chose to use it, could move mountains, or at least save herself, which was more than enough. The stars came out, one by one, bright against the Idaho sky, and Nora sat with her family. In the home she'd built, in the life she'd fought for, finally, truly, completely free. The whisper had become a roar, and the roar had become peace.